So I made my own version of the Artis Opus display box. But mine was sort of free. Now when I saw the boxes announced, I was excited. What an incredible idea! But on the release, I was gutted about the cost, as it was just out of my reach. This video is certainly not about pissing on Artis Opus Bonfire though. If I had the disposable income, I would absolutely back this. It's beautiful. And to be frank, the more companies like them, seeing gaps in the market, then taking risks, the better. And there should be some reward in doing that. So while I'm gutted they cost so much, I understand why. I'm pleased they exist, but I saw this comment underneath Fohammer's amazing video, and it pretty much summed it up. So I set myself the challenge to see how easy making my own display box would be. So with some moderate DIY skills, some basic tools, and a little dose of overconfidence, I set to making. The tools I use are really basic. The only power tools I use are a drill and a jigsaw, and of course, you need to keep yourself refreshed, so a cup of tea. A box the size of the one I make in this video would cost £120 plus about 10 quid shipping. There is just no way I can justify that spend, particularly not at the moment. Mine was made from offcuts, so really the only cost I had to spend was buying some magnets, which aren't really needed anyway. Even if you were going to buy all the materials yourself, the total cost for this would be less than £50, and for that, you can make 3 boxes, not 1. But making stuff is difficult. That's why you pay other people who know what they're doing to do it for you. I assume Artis Opus are using some sort of CNC routing, likely machine programmed, in order to cut out all their bits and pieces, and they may be laser cutting the acrylic sheets. I don't have those tools. I've just got a jigsaw. So I had to make some sacrifices. As the old saying goes, you can have it cheap, fast, or good. Not all of them. I chose cheap. If you're enjoying watching this, you can hang out some more on my free Discord server. The link's down below, or you could just like, subscribe, and comment to say hello. So far you've seen me measuring things out and marking things up. I based all the measurements off the measurements that are in the Artis Opus Kickstarter, so that's convenient, and then just adjusted them slightly for the offcuts that I had. Case of jigsawing. Jigsaws aren't exactly suited for this, or at the very least they should be best pressed up against something or using a jig. You can see the timber's already slipping out of alignment here. As I've already said, the best tool for this is something like a router, but I didn't have one of those, so I ended up just working out as I went. Unfortunately, this meant everything got a little bit wonky, as you can see here. Because the boards all ended up slightly different sizes, I ended up having to do a little bit of guesstimation before I could drill the pilot holes, which would allow me to jigsaw the inside out. Jigsawing the inside, if anything, even more tricky, and the clamps just weren't holding everything in place, so everything started to go a little bit awry here. I knew I'd have to do quite a lot of fixing towards the end. But eventually we ended up with 10 hollowed out squares, which we could then proceed to clamp together. Nice. They were all properly wonky, so it was just a case of putting them together as best as I could. Nothing more to be done than that, really. I will say I didn't really make life very easy for myself. What I could have done to improve things was just do every single one by one, using the same measurements. That would have taken longer, but I would have ended up with a much more accurate product and done probably a little bit less messing around at the end. So, hey ho, you live and learn. Or, I guess the other thing I could have done was back to the Kickstarter, but I'm not going to do that, obviously. I wanted to avoid any bowing and splaying once it was all screwed together, so I decided to use some PVA glue just to hold everything together. It would have been better to use wood glue, but PVA will work just fine for this. Like I say, it's not actually holding everything together, the screws will do that. This is just sort of stopping it warping later. Next I drilled 4 pilot holes, 1 in each corner, taking care to use the same size drill bit as the screw I was using, so in this case, 6mm. I had some 6x80 screws knocking around, so in they go, and that really tightens the whole thing together. Nice! I conveniently didn't take any photos of just how bad it looked without a fascia, but let's just say it needed one. Luckily Hardboard is a lot easier to cut than the OSB, so I really took my time with this to make sure I got it accurate. End of the day, I was going to look at this first. Once it's marked out, it's a case of going back to that jigsaw again. This is much thinner and easier to cut than the OSB though. Once I was done, I checked it and then sanded the edges to give me a nice chamfered edge. Then I cut myself a plate for the back, hammered that on with nails, and I felt it started to look quite good. Nice. Then it was off to the paint. I used a Montana fluorescent red spray paint, and then put a vignette of black around to add some atmosphere. Then I drilled 5mm holes around the edge and inserted some PVA glue and magnets into there, and that's what I used to hold the fascia on. Nice. So this is what we ended up with. It's a bit rough, but I was making out of OSB rather than birch ply. Some of the cuts are a bit wonky, but instead of using a CNC router, I was using a jigsaw. And as I was just practicing, I didn't really want to be bothered to make a jig. If I was making lots of these, I might even choose to invest in a router, because they only cost about 50 quid, and the link below if you want to have a go yourself. Honestly though, some sanding and some paint hid lots of sins, so I'm pretty pleased with the result in the end. And adding that hardboard fascia plate was a great idea, because that really neatened the whole thing up. I'm probably going to replace that with an acrylic one later, but for now, that's good enough. I've left a gap between that fascia and the main box so I can add some lighting in later, but unfortunately it didn't arrive in time for making this video, so it'll have to be a problem for future James. So here's the big reveal. I set myself a challenge, I had a go, I had some fun, and that's the point, isn't it? As always, a big thank you to my solo patron, TJ, and if you want to keep him company, the links to support the channel are just down below in the description. As ever, thanks for watching, guys.